Tampa,
Okay.
near Lake Leto, are now out of power. Again, 1,600 people in the city of Tampa are out of power. So we'll try to keep getting those updates for you. It's first power outages that we're hearing about in this particular area, but we'll try to get those updates to you as they come in.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, who are we going to next here?
We're going to go to Sean Daly.
Sean Daly, okay.
Sean Daly's checking out spots in Tampa. He was on the Gandy Bridge the last time that we talked to him.
Hey guys, we're on the beach just west of the Gandy Bridge. Couple things going on here. One, the weather is getting bad. First of all, look at the water. White caps are getting bigger. It's emptying out. Isn't that odd? It's emptying out in the middle there. And it's a weird pattern here as the water's going this way, almost like a reverse surge. Another thing, the Gandy Bridge is supposed to close at around 40 miles an hour. It's got to be close to that, guys. It's got to be close to that. It's getting really, really rough out here. People are still showing up on the beach. All right, how you doing? Be careful, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful. Don't do that. Guys, don't do that. But anyway, like I said, getting very, very, very dangerous conditions out here. That Gandy Bridge, I don't want to say anything, but hey, you know, when it gets this rough, it's going to close sooner or later, and it's probably going to be sooner. Anyway, back to you guys.
All right, somebody needs to take the coffee away from Sean Daly.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we
Sean.
do want to go to our Lauren St. Germain now. She's in Manatee County, where conditions we're hearing are quickly deteriorating. Lauren?
Yeah, guys, just before this live shot, my hat straight up flew off my head. Frankly, I'm going to have to hold on to it. We're getting gusts like this. Listen, you can hear. We're hearing the flagpole banging. We're hearing a lot of wind, a really strong gusts like this happening right now. We're at the EOC in Manatee County. We've been here since about, 8 o'clock this morning, and every hour it seems the gusts are getting stronger and stronger. Obviously, the storm is moving closer and closer to Manatee County. But we do want to let you know that the EOC is going to be on lockdown, as well as all Manatee County shelters once these winds reach 45 miles per hour, kind of like Andrea was saying in Polk County. You know, they're all going to start shutting down and locking people in once those winds get too dangerous to really be on the road. See, now we get a little calm in between the gusts right there, so that's good. And again, Manatee County has that mandatory curfew in place starting at 3 p.m. today, 24 hours into 3 p.m. tomorrow, and this is to keep everyone safe. You know, the sheriff is just kind of saying, don't go on the roads, because then if you get stuck in emergency, then, you know, if people have to go help rescue, see another one of those winds. So the Manatee County Sheriff's Office is trying to keep his people safe, plus you guys safe at home. So it's really important to just, if you're in Manatee County, hunker down where you are right now. A lot of people are in shelters. They were pretty much at capacity. They actually had to open up another high school, which originally wasn't going to be used as a shelter, but they opened it up because so many people went to the shelters. That one was a backup, a last resort, because it wasn't the best shelter, but you know, it was better than obviously being in an evacuation zone or whatnot. So we'll be out here. We expect to kind of get locked in pretty soon. I would expect, you know, we kind of thought it would be close to 1:30. I think it's coming. So this may be our last live report outside for a little while, but we'll try to keep an update on the conditions. And we have a press conference coming up in the EOC at 3:30. We'll get an update from Manatee County officials. You know, inside there in the command center, a lot of people in Manatee County who are working really hard to keep you and your family safe. They're passing along the information to us so we can pass it along to you, and we will keep doing that. Again, that update at 3:30. We'll have that on Facebook and try to bring it to you live as well. For now, reporting live in Manatee County with my hat still on, so good news there. Lauren St. Germain, back to you guys.
Okay, we want to get to Dennis Phillips. We've been waiting to hear from you. You gave me probably the best piece of news that I have heard all day, Dennis.
It's definitely something that we're going to have to continue to watch. I mean, folks, you know, I've been watching some of our live shots, and, you know, you've got your reporters out in the field, which you're always going to have in a hurricane, a tropical storm, I mean, because we try to share what's going on in some of the places that you're unable to go to. But, you know, we need to talk about tone here. And I'm telling you flat out, as I was leaving my neighborhood today, I see people crying and people hugging each other, you know? And this is something that people are scared about, with good reason. This is a big, big storm. So I think we need to remember over the next several hours not just here and how I present things to you, but in terms of our coverage, that, you know, the people at home right this second are probably as scared in the Bay Area in terms of a weather event than we have ever seen before. And with good reason. We have got a very sizable hurricane that is now moving in. The things that we're showing you on Facebook, the bay emptying out because the winds are so broad and pushing that water out, and eventually that water is going to come back in. But this is the way that I see things playing out over the next 6 to 12 hours, okay? First of all, the area of damage, we're hearing some houses have been damaged in areas, I believe, around Wesley Chapel. Those are the outer bands, okay? Those will continue to come through, and the ones pushing through Fort Myers right now, I can guarantee you those are hurricane force. But the overwhelming majority of the wind with this storm is in about a 20-mile area right near the eye, right there. Now, hurricane force winds still extend 80 miles from the center. So that's why we're saying all you have to do is look 80 miles from the center. There will be hurricane force winds and some gusts. But the track to this is now essential. And models you can throw out the window. It's the expression I've used at this point now. You throw the models out the window and you look out the window. Because we're looking at a track that will wobble, that will move. And in the case 12 years ago, 13 years ago, with Charlie, obviously, it can change dramatically. So you never say never with this. But at this point in time, this is moving, it looks like just a little bit west of due north, although the Hurricane Center is still calling it as a due north movement. So if you were to look and just extend this due north, that would take this in eastern Hillsborough, western Polk County. But this is the point I want to get to, folks, if you live in a mobile home. The areas around that 20-mile radius are the ones that are going to have the most to worry about. There will be pockets of extremely heavy wind in that area. Now, landfall looks to occur somewhere right around there, south of Fort Myers. And if that is the case, it is then going to travel over land. It will not strengthen anymore. It likely will start to weaken rather quickly. Now, if you have any hopes that this is going to be something where it's just going to turn or it's going to be dramatically weaker, just put them away right now. That is not the case. We are going to have a hurricane. We will have hurricane force winds, and there's no changing that. But what I am seeing is the area right around the center, while it is showing a little bit of lightning and thunder right there, so that can sometimes be a sign of intensification, and we have to watch that as well just before it makes landfall. At least we're talking about a rather small area of what would likely be Category 3 winds. Right now, the way I see this, and looking at what the Hurricane Center has it as well, I think it's reasonable to say we're looking at Category 2 winds across most of our central and northern counties as this goes through, and maybe low-end Category 3 in our southern counties of Sarasota and Manatee. All right, so let's go ahead and take a closer look. This, as I said, right there, that does appear to be getting a little bit stronger. There's your eye. Right there's your eye. And the way that it works with a hurricane, you go from the calm of the eye to the eye wall. So you go from the quietest part of the storm to the absolutely most extreme part, like that. I know people who went through Charlie, and literally they're outside cleaning their lawn up, and within 60 seconds later, the other side hit them. So if you live anywhere, and this looks like it's going to pretty much go right over Naples. I mean, I think it's safe to say that landfall will be pretty much between Naples and Fort Myers, and hopefully, and this is a tough thing because I know everybody's watching from Pinellas to Hillsborough to Polk to Highlands. I mean, we all do it. You look at this and you want to keep this thing as far away as you can from where you live. We all do. But remember, someone in the Bay Area is going to get the center of this storm. Our hope is it will weaken, and in my opinion, I believe it will start to weaken as it does move inland. The Hurricane Center also is lowering their intensity. But my point of all of this is if you live in a mobile home, and these are the bands that I'm talking about, by the way, and these are the ones that will continue to spawn tornadoes for the rest of the afternoon and into tonight. If you live in a mobile home and you're within that 20-mile stretch, and this is why now, if you're watching, if you live in a mobile home, if you have friends or family that live in a mobile home, and you watch the track, and we're going to be focused now on the track of the eye more than anything, because within those 20, maybe even 10 miles, there are little bitty pockets of very heavy wind. And those pockets are the ones that can do the damage, okay? They're the tornado warnings that continue to spawn even down across South Florida. So if you have any thoughts that this is going to be, okay, it's in, we're out of here, it'll be all gone by tomorrow morning, no. This will be lingering through most of tomorrow, tapering off maybe later on in the afternoon. So obviously the entire area under a hurricane warning, that won't be changing, but this is all about the track. So I said, again, if you have friends or family that are within about 10 to 20 miles of where that eye is going to cross, and it may not even be an eye at that point, it may just be a center, that is where the worst winds will be. You want to get them into a shelter. I know a lot of shelters are full now, and you need to maybe even start thinking about this. And I'm not saying that this is where it's going to happen, but I think it's my responsibility to tell you what I believe is going to happen to maybe make things a little more helpful for you to make your plans for you and your family. Eastern Hillsborough, Western Polk, if this storm were to continue moving just maybe west of due north as it is right now, and Shay, I think we're going to get a new advisory within like 10 seconds, so if you can, give me the updated positioning of it in terms of the movement. There should be a 2 o'clock advisory coming out. It's out? Okay, so the 2 o'clock advisory, it's still moving due north, all right? So that tornado watch is going to continue right on through tonight and into early tomorrow morning. So the line, we hate to even look at the line. I put it on because people want to see it, but I believe in terms of what we're looking at, north at 12, this line would really be probably more over here as it goes in. Now, if it starts to jog a little bit, when you're talking about a hurricane, it wobbles. That's what the eye does. The models cannot handle that wobbling. A lot of times you'll be watching and you're like, oh, look, it's going a little bit to the left, but it isn't. It's just kind of lopsided as it's rolling up. But the general motion, that right there, that end, is more important than anything other than that number right there. So we're back down to Category 3. I think there's a very reasonable chance that our northern and central counties, it'll be closer to a 2 by the time it actually rolls around our area. The issue, though, is there's a lot of wind out ahead of it, 70, 80 miles. And that's before the storm will actually weaken. So my timetable, I believe we're going to start seeing this roll into our southern counties in the next couple of hours. I think our central counties between about 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and then maybe 9 o'clock and 1 o'clock in our northern counties. That's the beginning. The center, the eye, that, I'll say it again, that is the key to everything in terms of the wind. Now the surge, that's another story entirely. I'm sure you've seen pictures, and we may even have pictures somewhere in our studio or our control room of the bay. All the water's been pushed out of the bay. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's a shallow bay, we get it, but it's not that the storm is so strong, it's that it's so large. I mean, there's a look right there at the Skyway, and obviously, you know, things are beginning to pick up. You know, again, I see some of the reporters out talking about the wind, and trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet for the entire area. And this is what I'm trying to just kind of get that message across to everybody watching. Right now, what we're seeing is nothing. Tonight is going to be one of the worst weather nights we have had in the Bay Area, maybe in 100 years. But at least we are seeing a track that could weaken it, and it will weaken it. And not to mention, it's going to start being sheared. The reason that it's switching to the north is because it's starting to feel a little bit of an impact from a push in this general direction that'll accelerate it, not the winds, the forward speed. It'll accelerate it, and that will have a tendency to weaken it. We're going to have a lot of rain with it, 5 to 10 inches of rain. There will be some flooding, obviously, but surge and wind and even tornadoes are the biggest thing that we're going to have to think about. Okay, this is a map that will be updated again at 5 o'clock. This comes directly from the Hurricane Center, and this is just based on their prediction of where it's going to go. Look how far out the hurricane-force winds extend, way out into the Gulf. This is a big, we've been saying this for 2 weeks, this is a big, big storm. In fact, we're going to have to change this graphic. We're going to have to get it back from the banner. But what you're seeing right here, in fact, you might even manually do that. But regardless, my point with this is you can see just, thank you, you can see just how big this is. But the real rough stuff, the winds that cause damage, the kind of damage that we're all worried about, that's causing neighbors to be hugging each other and thinking that this is going to be, they're going to lose their homes. Those winds are extremely small in an area near the eye, 10 to maybe 20 miles, and hopefully they'll get even weaker than that and shrink a little bit. This won't shrink. The area that's going to get hurricane-force winds is locked in. That will not change. So, I mean, there's the entire Bay Area. Our entire viewing area will see hurricane-force winds. But let me tell you, there is a huge difference from 80 to 85 to 90-mile-an-hour winds compared to 120 or 130. I've been saying this for the last couple of days. A Category 5 hurricane is 500 times more powerful than a Category 1. So the video and the pictures that you've been seeing of these islands that have been hit by the 5s, that's what the wrath of this storm has done. Unless something unbelievably dramatic happens and it rapidly intensifies, which we don't believe it will, but you never say never with a hurricane, there will be nothing like that. What you can expect in your area tonight, terrifying. I mean, it's going to be terrifying. I'm not trying to candy coat things. I'm not trying to hype things. I think you guys know me well enough for that. But if you've never been through 100-mile-an-hour winds, and most of us have not, it's a scary thing. It's going to be nighttime. There's not going to be power. So what are we going to do for you? Well, first of all, we're simulcasting on 5 local radio stations, because when you lose power, there's a couple of ways to keep up, because you're going to want to know what's happening. I've been through a storm where we lost power, and you want to know what's happening. So you can either download our app, our ABC Action News app, and we're streaming live right now. So what I'm doing right now isn't just on TV, it's also on the app. The app's free, so you go to either the Play Store or you go to iTunes and you download ABC Action News, and you find the spot where it says streaming, and you can watch us. And actually, I was talking to my in-laws. They couldn't figure out how to make the screen bigger, so I haven't looked at it, but that may be a little bit tougher. But there's a way to make it actually cover your entire screen, whether it's your mobile device or whether it's your computer or whatever it is you're going to be watching on. So that's a great way. But remember, that also is going to use your battery for your phone. So you're going to want to either find a way to charge or have a backup charger or one of those portable block chargers ready to roll, because when the power goes out, I suspect it will stay out for quite a while. So if you don't want to stream and watch, you can still listen to us on a transistor radio, on an old school radio. And that's a great way. The difference is we won't be saying you can see this red blob. We'll have to be using more of a descriptive way in that we present this to you, and we learned that from Hurricane Charlie. So as we go tonight, when the power will be out across much of our area, I mean at 2 a.m., there's what we're looking at. The power probably will be out over the majority of our area. That's when you're going to need it the most. So let's go and look at some of the radio stations now that we actually are simulcasting on right now. They're our radio partners. There they are. Take a screenshot with your phone of that right now, or write it down. It's also on the web, but if you want to write those down real quick, we'll wait. It's 99.5 QYK. It's Q105. Those are all FM. Wild 94.1, 98.7, and 92.5. What we're doing right now, we're simulcasting on those radio stations. And tonight, you're going to want that. If you can't stream, if you don't have a smartphone, if you're not getting internet, you're going to want to hear. Another thing, your family is going to want to know what's going on, and you might not be able to get on Facebook with the internet. Great way to let your family know. Also, my producer's also telling me that on the bottom of the screen, you're also able to see those radio stations and whatnot. Want to mention this too. This is just kind of 30 years of experience talking here. When you have your phone, a lot of times you cannot get a signal. There's not enough bandwidth, or cell towers for that matter, because they could be knocked down, although I think that's a little extreme. I don't expect we're going to run into that if we're looking at a Category 2 hurricane. But regardless, my point is it's a lot tougher to get a call out because of the bandwidth. Texting is the way to let your family know you're okay, because it requires far less bandwidth, and you can receive texts a lot easier from your relatives. So if you want to let folks know that you're okay during the storm, the way to go is to not get on the phone and try to talk to them, because you know you're going to lose signal, and we lose signal in a thunderstorm. Text. That is absolutely the way we're doing with this. So we're going to be on the air, there's 16, 18, 24 hours, who knows, maybe longer than that. So I think the tone of what we're going to be doing here is going to be changing. Instead of trying to predict, which I'm the first to admit, haven't done a very good job in trying to predict exactly where this storm is going to go. I mean, 3 or 4 days ago, the models were going on the west side of the state, and 24 hours later, everything was over on the east coast. And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us had a sigh of relief. And then all of a sudden, over the last 2 or 3 days, it just kept coming more and more west. So we haven't done, as meteorologists, I think, we're unable maybe, or just needed some more work on tropical forecasting to get it exactly right. So what our job is now is changing from what we think is going to happen to getting you through this mess that we're going to have to deal with. Because even though maybe the winds might be coming down tonight, later on, which they will be, we're still going to have a ton of trees down, and a lot of trees are going to go on houses. In about 2 weeks, you're going to look out and see blue tarps everywhere. There's going to be a lot of roofs that are going to fail, not even necessarily because of the wind, but because of the rain, because of a lot of other things that go on. You know, and a lot of our roofs might be 15, 20 years old. I mean, how many of you actually are saying, I could have used a new roof 5 years ago, and we didn't want to, you know, we didn't have enough money right then to pay for it. So these kind of winds can cause problems. So we're going to have a ton of blue tarps out there. And the winds out there, I'm not sure where this picture's from. Guys, tell me where this picture's from. I don't know. But anyway, it's obviously kind of nasty out there, and we continue to get more information. That's from the causeway. Okay. You say Sanibel? Okay, Sanibel. So this is down south of Fort Myers, and it's kind of hard to see, but look at the surf crashing up on that causeway. Now, that's much closer to the center. So areas in the surge warning, our biggest concern for surge will still probably be at high tide, but everything seems to be moving a little bit faster, so we may actually even luck out in terms of the highest tide. And then by later on tonight, tomorrow morning, I'll tell you, there's a chance that Tallahassee actually could get some minimal hurricane force winds. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. They actually had a hurricane a couple of years ago. Wasn't that Hermine? I believe that was Hermine that went up there, Shay. But I know Mike Paluska covered it up there in Tallahassee. But, you know, we're going to be looking at minimal tropical storm, or rather minimal hurricane force winds. So you have kids, you know, I have 2 kids at Gainesville. And a lot of folks here have kids at FSU and at FAMU. So they're going to be in for a ride, but I don't expect it to be significant. It was Hermine. That's thank you. So I kind of figured it was, though. So again, that is what we're looking at here, folks. I'm just trying to reinforce, we understand at home how scared a lot of folks are. We are too, you know? So if you look at the wave heights in the area right here, 25, maybe 30, this is pretty much well offshore. So I think, at least at this point in time, you know, we're going to continue to look at as that water comes back in after midnight, you know, and then all of a sudden, I think things will start to improve by maybe mid-morning tomorrow. But surge is going to be something we have not seen before in the Bay Area, but I will tell you this, it's not going to be the worst-case scenario. How many of you guys read the article that came out this last summer about how Tampa, ironically enough, you know, one of the worst spots for a worst-case scenario? And they're right, it is. But that scenario is not this storm, all right? It's not going to be rosy. It's going to be a rough time. We're going to have a lot of cleanup. But, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm feeling it in this newsroom, and I know I felt it out in the neighborhoods in the community as I was walking around the last couple of days. Yeah, everybody's frightened by this, but we are absolutely adamant that we're not going to let it get the best of us. I mean, we live in paradise. And maybe this goes along with it from time to time, and you guys have got to take the good with the bad, and this is certainly about as bad as it gets. It may or may not even be a Category 3 when it impacts us directly, which is always the big thing. The last major hurricane to hit the Bay Area was back in 1921, almost 100 years ago. So the surge will be the worst down south. Again, this is from Sanibel. I can't even really see if that's a bridge or a pier, like a boardwalk kind of a pier. But if it is, that's probably going to go, because they're going to have a surge of about 15 feet down there. That's where most of your surge damage is going to be. There's the tides that are coming up. We are going to have significant surge at high tide, and obviously the water, not all that bad right now. But the problem is, as this storm right now, and this is what's going on. The winds are blowing the water out of the bay. Strong northeast winds are blowing it right out of the bay. Once Irma passes our area, and then the winds come around out of the southwest, that water that came out is going to get pushed right back in, and more of it, because it's such a big storm. Not a powerful storm per se, even though it is, but a big storm. It's pushing a lot of water, as we say. Okay, here are some of the updated wind gusts. These are not sustained winds. Usually you can knock about 10 to 15, even 20 miles an hour off of the wind gusts for sustained winds, okay? This is Citrus, Hernando, and Pasco County. And these are the gusts. Boy, my eyes are so bad I can hardly even see that. 1 a.m. tomorrow morning. So overnight, you're talking gusts from Spring Hill to Hudson to Newport Richey in around the mid-90s. Sustained about 80. It's Category 1 hurricane. We can handle a Category 1 hurricane as a whole. It's going to be nasty. Again, trees down, power outages. We've gone through that forever and ever. But if we get numbers like this, common numbers like this, between 85 and 105, we'll be all right. We're going to have cleanup to do. But it's not going to be the kind of structural damage that I think people are concerned about, that everybody's concerned about. Losing your house, having your house cave in. These kind of winds are not that kind of a situation. Now, I'll say it again, that 20-mile area near the center of the storm, that is everything right now. The two biggest concerns, just accept the fact that you're going to have 75 to 90-mile-an-hour winds. That's a given. Nothing's going to change. That is our base point, all right? And then there will be some gusts that will be a little bit higher than that at times, especially in our southern counties, Sarasota and Manatee, because you're closer to the center of the storm. You're closer to the eye. And as the eye makes an inland track, if that does indeed occur, and we never say never, but if it does, as we believe it will, then all of a sudden it will start to weaken as it moves north. Now, I don't think it'll weaken maybe as quickly as a smaller storm, because this is so big, it's going to take a little bit longer to wind it down. But at least it won't get any stronger, and it'll be a Cat 2. And again, I think that's something nobody wants to deal with, but we can. We will get through that part. But boy, I can't say this enough. If you're in a mobile home, I mean, I know somebody out there is watching right now in a mobile home in an area that's going to be somewhere between eastern Hillsborough and western Polk. If you're in those areas, I beg you, at least check and see if there's a shelter that's open for you. Okay, so Mike Paluska, I believe, is down in Fort Myers, or is he in Naples? And he's out there, and it's...
Port Charlotte.
Okay, that's right, that's right. So, Mike, I think you can hear me. We've been talking for the last day or so, trying to position you in a spot where you're safe, but can still kind of experience what's going on there. Obviously, you're getting there, but I'll tell you, buddy, you went through Hermine. You know there's a lot more to go.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny you said that. You know, this is very minimal compared to what we're going to experience even here where we are. And this really just kicked up. It just turned on, just like a switch. Turned on, rain came in. We finally started getting those bands. You know, we're not on the dirty side, which is a good thing, because we're not getting all those tornado warnings, at least Polk is, but down here we're not, and up our coast we're not getting all the same tornado warnings, which is great. But it really did start to just kick up. And what we were talking about earlier is all the people that we've been hanging out with. We're actually in front of just this little strip mall where one of the businesses stayed open late for people, and these guys were terrified. They're going to ride out the storm, and where we are, it's going to possibly, the eye wall could make landfall and come right over Port Charlotte where we are right now, just depending on the wobble in the track. So yeah, it started to kick up a little bit. What concerns me the most and what I'm looking out for is obviously debris. We cleaned up this area pretty well. I mean, we walked it multiple times, grabbing boards, nails, whatever we could find, because I don't want any of that flying at me. But then you take a look at the power lines here, and you see these trees, and these winds are weak compared to what we experienced in Tallahassee and Hermine last year, and that was, you know, a Cat 1, and I think the winds, we were about 4 miles from where it came ashore, and it only lasted for maybe 3 or 4 hours. This event's going to last for maybe 8 hours of just pounding wind hitting this area. The power lines here, they're going to snap, they're going to go, and I'm not going to be anywhere near them when that does happen. I'll be running the other way because I'm terrified of electricity. But you can see just how windy it's getting right now. We know that there are power crews on the standby. We're told that there are like 17,000 scattered across the state. There's a building behind me, but it's too far away. But if you zoom in all the way over there, Tim, you can see there's a bunch of tree trimmers, power vehicles. They're positioned there, and then so that's good. And then we know that they've been refilling some of the fuel stores before the storm hits, and then turned off the pumps so that you know, people can get fuel afterwards. Dennis, I don't know how much wind this is. What do you think?
Right there, you're probably talking 50, 60. You've had some bands. You're exactly right. What you're getting now are some of the outer bands, or closer to the inner bands, but still the bands. You're nowhere near the center where you're, and unfortunately, you're right, Michael. You probably are going to get 90, 100, maybe 110-mile-an-hour winds down there, compared to as it goes up, it may weaken a little bit. But I got to ask you a question in terms of, you've covered other hurricanes, And what I'm hearing from you and what I know I feel myself and I see around this newsroom for the most part is this is a storm for the first time that I can remember since Charlie that people are actually really frightened of.
Absolutely. People here were absolutely terrified, and people were coming up to the gas pumps to get gas because we were just there doing a live report about the fact that there was no gas. And when we said, hey, there's no gas, all we heard was cursing, screaming, and then punching the gas that they have and going to the next place because they wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. And, you know, that's smart. That's exactly what we want people to do. And I've, you know, grown up around hurricanes. I was in my first hurricane when I was pretty young, Hurricane Alicia. I was like 3 months old in Houston, Texas. The eye came over my house, and it was incredible. And I think that's probably why I love covering weather. I don't remember that at 3 months old. But, you know, our family always talked about it and also grew up on the island. I hope I don't remember it. And grew up, in, you know, Florida and covering hurricanes here. So, yeah, Dennis, this is going to be bad. And I know it's going to be bad right here. And we're positioned in a place where we're going to be able to jump out, report, and then when it gets really bad, we'll be able to sort of hide around some of these corners. And you've told us which way the winds are going to shift. So we picked, we think, the perfect spot to ride this out and bring coverage to people, because I don't think they understand if a hurricane, a major landfalling hurricane hasn't hit since Charlie in 2004, a lot of new people come to Florida. They don't understand how powerful this thing is. I mean, the winds are howling behind me. Power lines are already bowing and under trees. I mean, we're going to lose power. It's going to be out for a while, and Lord knows what else is going to happen, especially with people in mobile homes.
Yeah, Mike, and again, with you, you're at least in daylight. The folks in our area, this is going to be happening in the dead of night. This is going to be happening with no power, and you won't be able to see anything. What I think will be the worst for folks tonight will be the wind, will be the sound of the wind, because you're going to hear trees. I mean, it's just a terrifying thing, and you know what? I don't even think we need to dwell on it anymore, because I think everybody knows what it is. So the bottom line is, thanks again, Mike. That's Mike Paluska. He's in Port Charlotte, and we're going to go back to him as things begin to pick up. But, you know, for the last couple of days, we try to get you ready for preps. We try to tell you where we think the storm is going. And truthfully, we haven't done a very good job of that, because this storm has done a lot of things on its own that we didn't see coming. But we've tried to get you ready for what's happening now. Now, pretty much we're in it. It's lock it up and just ride it out. And if you do live, I'll say it, there's still probably some opportunity for people that will be near the center of this storm that could still make it to a shelter if you're in a mobile home. That would be the only person right now that I would say you still might want to consider if you live within 20 miles, and it looks right now somewhere central eastern Hillsborough, western Polk, if the center continues on a north track, and it has now for about 3 or 4 hours. If you still have time to go to a shelter and you're in a mobile home, that might be the way to go. But now it's our job to let you know how we go hour by hour, what to expect, and in my opinion, to just help you get through this. It's an emotional time for us, you know? So I don't know about you, but I'm tired of seeing people scaring us on TV. And I've been seeing that a lot over the last couple of days and watching some different places and different sources. We're scared enough. So let's kind of get together. And I know, Dia, you've got some stuff that you wanted to mention as well. For Temple Terrace. Can you guys hear Dia? I couldn't hear her either. Okay, so
My mic back on,
Mike,
please.
there
There we
you
go.
go.
Yeah.
There you go. Dia, go ahead.
Temple Terrace has enacted a 6 o'clock curfew. So Dennis was mentioning people who feel like they need to get to a shelter. Again, if you're in Temple Terrace, you've got a 6 o'clock curfew. We also want to mention, too, keep this in the back of your mind. Facebook also has activated its safety check feature. So you're probably like I am. You're fielding 15 million text messages from family and friends wanting to know that you're safe. If you go on and you activate that safety check, you save your data. You let everybody know that you're safe, and then you don't have to constantly let people know because they're worried about you, so they want to know that you're safe. That's another option. One other thing to remember, Dennis mentioned that this storm hitting in the dead of night, and you know, you want to prepare for the power outages. Make sure that you use this time right now to charge your cell phone, to charge your laptops, charge those tablets, so that you can make sure that you stay connected and you know what's coming next. make sure you do that now. Also, make sure that you put flashlights, or if you have those little battery-powered candles, make sure that you put them somewhere that you can get them right away. I know with my kids, I always try to put them maybe one on the nightstand so that if the power goes out, they know it goes out. They can flick that on real quick, and then you've got it in your bedroom.
Absolutely.
So you want to take the precaution right now to put those things all around, you know, to make sure that you're safe the minute that the power goes
We've been
out.
saying this for now the last 12 hours we've been on the air, that it's not a matter of if, it's when you lose
Exactly.
power. So you want to prepare yourself so you can still get some kind of information, just to reiterate what Dennis said, when you do lose power.
Yeah, one other thing too, I was talking to Dennis about this too. I'm a native Floridian, grew up in Florida. I can remember when I was younger, whenever we thought that there was a hurricane or we got a tornado warning, we always had a plan. We always knew where we were going to go. It was always in a bathroom or in a room that did not have a window. If you've not thought of that yet, when you get that tornado warning, you hear that sound, you make sure that you find a room. Now with so many homes in Florida, everybody's trying to take advantage of the view. So there are windows in every single room. If it's your pantry, if it's your bathroom, if it's your closet, make sure that you find a safe room in your house so that if there is a tornado warning, and we've been hearing that there probably will be,
yes,
in multiple counties in our area at some point over the next 24 hours, make sure you know where your safe room is going to be and that you've got a plan to get to it quickly. Get some pillows, make a pallet for your kids if you have kids. Do whatever it takes to make sure that you keep your family safe, you know, and then make sure that your kids know what they're supposed to do next.
We want to go to Sarasota County now, where they're starting to see some conditions worsen there. We have Jake Peterson for us live with the latest. Let's bring up his picture and take a look here at Jake. Okay, Jake, tell us, just describe what's going on around you.
Well, what I can tell you is, you know, they were saying here that we're going to start feeling those winds really pick up around 2 o'clock, and, you know, here we are. And I can tell you, this is about as bad as it's gotten so far. Earlier today, I was out about an hour ago, and it's that kind of wind where you open the door, it slams the door shut right away. It's definitely picking up here. We still just have some light wind, but again, or light rain rather, but the winds are picking up. We're outside of the Emergency Operations Center. This is kind of where all of the folks, the FHP, Florida Power Light, they all kind of gather here and monitor the storm. But what I can tell you is that the winds rather, weren't this heavy yesterday, and we already saw some downed trees on Siesta Key. So the possibility for those trees, bushes, I mean, you can just see this guy here. He's already starting to really blow here. It's coming. I mean, the roadways are really going to start to deteriorate here pretty soon here in the Sarasota area, and then obviously head up north, Manatee, Pinellas County. Now, I can tell you, a lot of folks here have taken shelter, 17,000 in shelters, and 10 different shelters here in the Sarasota area. They still will take you if you are watching this and deciding, hey, I do need to go for shelter. I do need to get some safety. Right now, they have 7,000 spots available here in Sarasota County. Up north in Manatee County, they have some limited space as well, we're hearing right now. But that's the latest here in Sarasota County. We're expecting a briefing within the next half hour to an hour or so, and we'll let you know as soon as that happens. Reporting live here in Sarasota County, Jake Peterson. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Jake. We also want to mention, too, I mentioned that when Dennis came in, Dennis always comes in and he gives us a little bit of an update. And at this point, so many of us are stressed. So many first responders, you're out, you're away from your family. People are watching us. They're messaging us. They're sending us Facebook messages. They're sending us email messages. People are very scared. But when Dennis came in and he whispered to me, you know, just a little bit of hope, you know, you hold on to every single gleam of hope. And when Dennis said, this storm is going to be not as strong as we expected. It's going to be bad, but this we can survive. And instantly I felt, you know what? It's going to be okay.
He may have been whispering to you, but I overheard it, and I needed to hear it as well.
So we want to hear back from Dennis again. Thank you, Dennis, for the hope. That's all we needed.
Yeah, Dia, and I think that's actually what a lot of folks are thinking about right now. I think they're going to come back to me. That's what we're talking about. But let's be very clear right now about what we're going through. We'll talk about current, okay? We still have a hurricane warning. We are still looking at the worst winds the Bay Area has seen overall in decades, okay? So let's not minimize the threat. But remember, there was the potential, especially with all that warm water south of Florida. I mean, there was talk, and that was a conversation that I would have entertained as well, and did for that matter, that all that warm water down to our south could cause this to blow up to a 4 or maybe even a 5, you know, and maybe it could have come in from the southwest. That's the worst case scenario. A southwest to northeast moving storm getting stronger as it did so, like Charlie, of this size would be that big one, that worst case scenario that we have ever seen. So that is not going to happen. All right, so at least we are not at the very top of what we're going to deal with. But I do not want to minimize the threat at all in terms of what we are going to experience, which is the strongest hurricane overall, north to south, that we have dealt with in decades. But trust me, there is a big difference from a Category 2 storm, or even a minimal 3, to a 4 or a 5. So, Shay, I think I think I locked it up. All right, that's okay. Just pop it up from the beginning again. Sure. So, and as you see, we're going to be having conversations right on through the overnight. This is not the traditional news coverage, because what we're doing right now is we're just going along as you are. We're locked in. Nobody's leaving. You're locked in. Nobody's leaving. The exception, as I said, if you're very close to a shelter and you just decided, I don't need this, I'm going to go in and hang with my friends and hang in a very nice, maybe not comfortable, granted, but at least safe building. But in terms of what we're looking at across the area now, all right, this is a map we just created, and we'll get Wendy and Jameson are coming in right now, so we'll talk with them in just a second. But the official NHC track, Hurricane Center track, they always say don't look at the line. Well, it's hard not to look at the line. When you're afraid that that line is going to bring a big hurricane right over your house, of course you're going to look at the line. It's human nature. So as we continue to get live pictures when it's coming in from the south, what is coming up from the south will eventually move into our area. But what we're seeing right now, this is to the point where models are meaningless. Again, they really weren't that good either anyway for the last 4 or 5 days. But in terms of what we're looking at for the short term, they're meaningless. Now it is just tracking. And Irma has now been moving due north for the last 4 hours. That's not to say it's going to make a little bit of a wobble one way or another way. But right now, it's been moving due north, or maybe just like 10 degrees west of due north. But regardless, you get what I'm saying. So if that's the case and it continues, this will make landfall around Naples and start its track inland. The minute it does that, it will lose its energy source, the warm water. So it will slowly start to weaken. Now, if there were no other variables going along, it would take a while to do so. But in addition to land, it's also going to start being sheared. It's a term we talk about. It kind of cuts off the top of storms, pushes it along faster, and very often causes a little bit quicker weakening. So what could have been, well, what was a Category 4 hurricane earlier today is now a 3, and conceivably could be down to a 2. We need it to drop 10 more miles an hour to go to a Category 2. And I think by the time we get into the Tampa Bay area and areas to the north, that's what it will be. Hurricane Center will update their forecast coming up. The track will update at 5 o'clock. Now, I didn't even put their track, that line, on here because it's still pretty far west, and I think now at this point it really is all about looking at the area with the greatest wind potential. It's a 20-mile area, 40-mile diameter, 20 miles each way, east and west of the center. That's where the heaviest wind will be. Now, within that area, it is not just a giant, for lack of a better term, a giant tornado with everything in that having equal wind. The numbers that you're seeing on the screen of the 110 or 120 or whatever it is, those are little bitty pockets. They're usually not very widespread. A perfect example, as the planes are flying through, as recon's flying through, they find a little blip for 60 seconds or whatever it is, and they're like, okay, this is the area that has that wind. They go on the other quadrant, and it's 40 miles an hour weaker. They go on the southwest quadrant, and it's half that speed. So usually it's the northeast quadrant that is the strongest, and usually it's smaller areas within there. And my concern right now is as I watch this move north along this path, this gray area that Shay and I made, Shay made that. This is the path that shows a 40-mile diameter from where we're right now seeing the center of the storm going, okay? That's all it is. This isn't the Hurricane Center's path. This is us eyeballing it and saying, it's going north, it's been north 4, and we're taking the radar and extended it for you. So within this path, the eastern half of this would probably be where some of the heavier wind would be, but it will not be overall a uniform Cat 2, Cat 3, whatever it is. It will be pockets of that. So what that means, and what I'm trying to stress to you, is everybody is going to get hurricane force winds. If you have hopes that it's just not going to happen, you are going to have hurricane force winds, which are 75. I think 75 to 90 is a really good, solid number for our northern and central counties, with gusts maybe up to 105 at times in very small areas in some of those bands. Okay? Sarasota, Charlotte, Manatee, yours will be a little bit higher because it's not going to have an opportunity to weaken quite as much by then. But our hope is that it continues to weaken, and truthfully, once it makes landfall around Naples, I think it will. But it's going to take a while because she is such a big storm, big enough to blow the water out of Tampa Bay, even without the winds getting here yet. I mean, that's what's crazy about this. Think about this. We don't really have any of the wind at all yet, and yet the push was strong enough to get the bay pretty much dry, which is why you don't want to be anywhere near there when it comes around. When will it come around and come back in? Once the center of the storm passes that latitude. So right there, the winds go from northeast to southwest when the storm is there. When the storm is here, see what I'm saying? Once it passes that line east to west, the winds shift from the northeast to the southwest, and all the water that was pushed out is now pushed back in. That is going to happen. There's no way around it. That's when the surge is going to be an issue. The entire time, we're going to have torrential rains. We're going to have flooding. I was driving in with a band, and I saw a big billboard for an insurance company, need insurance, hurricane insurance, call them. It was ripped apart. And that was just a gust, 45 miles an hour. So this right now, what you're looking at coming through, and there will be additional tornado warnings, by the way, and those are usually really small, very short-lived, but they still have 90-mile-an-hour winds a lot of times and can do some damage. So we're still in that tornado watch for the entire area. But there is when it starts getting real. That's the outer bands, well, the mid bands, really. And that's going to be entering the Sarasota County region. It's already in DeSoto County, and it's already in Highlands County right now. Highlands and DeSoto, you're getting some nasty wind right now, and there's more on the way. I mean, we zoom in right here. There you can see it. Any of these bands, you could see the potential for a tornado from Lake Placid up towards Sebring, you know, but it's still not the strongest. The strongest is still way down there. In fact, Shay, can you actually just zoom into that little area right in the eye? I mean, right where the center. Okay, right. Okay. You want to know where the heavy, I'll tell you where the damaging wind is right now. Right there. Can you stop it actually? Just go to now. Right there. There is your wind. There's your eye wall. West side, weaker. You can see it, right? Right now, that looks like it's pretty much making a beeline from Marco Island and up toward Naples. Now, at that point, if it continues north, it's lost its energy source. It's lost the warm water. So at that point, it will not strengthen anymore. And hopefully, it will start to weaken quicker sooner than later. So look how small of an area that is. All right? It's clearly going to be terrible for Marco Island. There's going to be some major damage in Marco Island. Still a Cat 3, right? We're still looking at winds of 120? Yeah, I think it's 120 was the last I saw. So that's still a major hurricane, but it's not a 4, and it's not a 5 like it was earlier. So, and it won't be. If it's this close now, there could be, a brief period of time. If it stays and goes inland, like it looks like it's going to, I mean, if it does a jog to the left and doesn't want to go inland and wants to scoot along the coast, and there's a chance it could stay longer. But that's something we're just going to have to track. So you keep it here. Minute by minute, we will watch this. But as I said, right there is where the damaging wind is. And that's what? Maybe 10 miles? So when we're watching this tonight, or listening tonight, because a lot of folks are going to be without power. So again, guys, in fact, if we can, it's on the bottom of the screen as well. We've got radio stations, 5 radio stations that we're simulcasting on right now, and we'll do it all night long. So when you lose power, and it's not really an if, it's when you lose power, these are the 5 radio stations that you can turn to and hear us. And we've already been talking about how we do what we do. We'll have to change. Instead of saying, hey, look at the red area, hey, look at this, you'll be listening. So we'll try to be far more descriptive and use more geographical locations as opposed to obviously just saying, look at this red area here. So that's something that's going to happen for us this evening when you lose power. We're already getting reports of a power outage. Wendy was telling me about it. Those are just power outages from the far outer bands, and there's obviously a lot more on the way from there. So there's the eye. It looks as though within an hour or so, if it does continue north, this is going to make landfall around Marco Island and just east of Naples. And you want to know the irony of that? Today's the 57th anniversary of Hurricane Donna, which was the last major storm to come in like that and hit Naples as a Category 4, and that's exactly where Irma is going to hit. The path is a little different, but coming up from this way, it's almost identical. So go figure. So anyway, there it is. As it goes up, it will start to weaken. Those strong winds will start to shrink and break up, and then you'll have even more pockets of gusty winds. Very, very heavy winds, damaging winds. Boy, great shot there. Where's that from? There's from Miami. And I'll tell you, just another great example. This storm is on the west coast of Florida. Look at Miami right now. Have you been seeing Miami for the last couple hours? And they're getting crushed by bands. They are nowhere near the center of the storm, the strongest winds. But they're easily looking at 80, 90 mile an hour winds right there, maybe even 100. So those are bands that, unfortunately, we're going to be. Now, those are probably some gusts of 90, maybe sustained more 75 to 80. But you see what I'm saying here? That is certainly something that we're going to get bottom line. So how does this impact us tonight? There will be trees down all over the place. There will be power outages for days. There will be incredible amount of blue tarps on roofs across our entire viewing area over the next few weeks. And there's no way around that. That's going to happen. But you know what? We had that back in 2004 with Francis and Jean. We've had that with tropical storms. We can make it through that. When you start talking about a 4 or a 5, and there's an expression I talk about, rule number 7, don't freak out. You see a 4 or 5, that's worth freaking out. You see a 1 or a 2, or maybe even a minimal 3. Minimal 3 is a major hurricane. You never, ever want to minimize it, or a 2 for that matter, because unfortunately, if there's people who stay in mobile homes and they don't evacuate and they're in that little area right there, they may not make it. And I'm talking to a lot of folks in our viewing area east of I-75 if they're in that path of the storm. So that's why you still have time to get to a shelter if there's one that's still open. And I'm not advocating go out in nasty weather, but trust me, a 30 or 40 mile an hour wind gust is nothing compared to 110 or 120 mile an hour wind gust across the area. Shay, I believe, what is this, the north to south arrow? Yeah. What that is? That's fine. Oh, okay. No, it's okay. But regardless, due north is the motion. So every hour the Hurricane Center releases a new fix, and they'll tell us if it's changed at all. All right? We do have, some of our reporters are out in the field. Obviously, things aren't nearly as bad in the Bay Area directly, but there's still some spots that are picking it up. And who do we have in St. Pete? Simon. I couldn't understand Simon's last name, but Simon is in St. Pete right now.
Hi there.
Hey, how you doing, Simon? It looks like things are still okay across Pinellas County, but are you near the water? Yeah, well, clearly you are. So are you seeing the water start to come up quite a bit now, or it's still okay?
Hi there, Dennis. We are seeing waves crashing up against the beach. We are in Vinoy Park. Let's walk over here and show you exactly what it looks like. Pretty significant waves, actually, just crashing against the bay here. And we see a couple of folks out here taking some pictures, kind of checking out the scenery. But for the most part, it's cleared out. This is an area that is typically filled with people. And this is what we've been talking about, those intense winds and what we will begin to feel tropical storm conditions. And that's prior to Hurricane Irma arriving in this area, just a few short hours from those anticipated winds of more than 100 miles an hour lasting through tomorrow morning. We do see a police presence out here. Important to point out, they are also going to be clearing out before too long, meaning that anyone who's out and about, as we've been told, will essentially be on their own. Keep in mind, a storm surge would also bring dangerously high waves up onto shore. Particular concern to people who are living nearby. There are some beautiful homes here in this area. And bottom line, you want to make sure you're in a safe place, such as an evacuation shelter or a home that is not in a mandatory evacuation zone. And again, let me just tell you, we can really feel those strong winds out here. you hear and see those waves crashing and the rain's kind of hitting you from all directions. Even over here, let me show you this part of these trees. Some of the nature here just brought down by these winds. Not significant, but we're going to see a heck of a lot more of that. And not too many people out here. I can count on one hand the amount of people out here. Typically this area would be filled. For now, live in St. Petersburg, Simon Shaquette, ABC Action News.
Got it. Simon Shaquette. Thanks, Simon. Appreciate it. Now, in terms of what Simon's looking at, remember the wind is still blowing out where he is. So that is still, you're not talking about, there will not be a surge issue until the center of Irma has passed that location. So whether it's the Hillsborough Bay, whatever water area you're talking about, Tampa Bay itself, the winds will continue to, you can see it. Look at there's your counterclockwise flow, right? And look at the way everything's pushing. It's pushing water out of the bay and into the Gulf. But look down south of the eye. Look what's happening there. It's all going inland. By the way, there's that band right there. Looks kind of benign. Doesn't look all that heavy, right? That's the one that was, all that video we just showed you a second ago in Miami, how they were getting hammered. And I guarantee you it's a heck of a lot rougher right now on Marco Island. So I'm going to toss it over back to Jameson and Wendy in a second, but I just want to remind everybody, we're going to be here all night, okay? That 20 to 40 mile area that we're going to be tracking continuously is the key to everything now. There's no false hopes that we're not going to get a hurricane here. It's going to happen. Our hope right now is it's going to be a 2 as opposed to a 4, because trust me on this, that is a massive difference in terms of damage. We got a lot of cleaning up to do either way, but you get a 4, you start talking about structural damage. You get a 2, you get trees on homes, you have roofs damaged, but you normally don't see those looks of the 4s and the 5s that the devastation can bring. So we'll look at some new numbers, new recon coming in, see if that north track continues or if there's a change, because if there is, that's obviously going to make a world of a difference of who gets that strongest wind right around the center of the storm. Guys?
All right, thank you, Dennis. The roller coaster, I guess, is at the top of the hill, and we cannot get off at this point, folks. And we are just coming in for Wendy Ryan. I'm Jameson Euler. We got a few hours of sleep.
Yes, we did. We're giving Dia and James a chance to get some rest, but our continuous coverage continues now. Yeah. And we want to check in now with Matt Smith. He is live in Tampa for us. Matt, I know you're live outside of a Hilton hotel. What are the conditions where you are?
Right now, actually, we're just dealing with the intermittent gusts. You can actually see that happening right now. The trees off here in the distance, kind of swaying, kind of breezing. Not the stuff that you're seeing out there actually on the ocean right now. A little bit different than that coastal feel that we've been seeing throughout the day. We just checked in with Simon a little bit ago. But actually, one of the things that we're noticing here is a lot of people are congregating right here at the front of the hotel. A big part of this, these people are local. A lot of them have actually come in here because they didn't want to go to the shelters, or in some cases, they just realized they want to be with friends and family. They couldn't get in together. I'm actually walking over here to Ashley. She's one of the people, one of the locals that got in here. Ashley, tell me, I mean, you're here with your friends. What made you make the decision to be here?
We couldn't get out. There was a lack of gas in the region. We went to about 8 separate gas stations, and we were feeling safe. Everyone's here and in good spirits, and just God bless everyone. We're just praying for everyone out there and making it out alive. We'll be good. Everything's going to be good. Everyone's in awesome spirits here, and we're all sticking together. So that's what it's about, unity in numbers. So
I know you said you saw a National Guardsman actually inside the building. What did that make you feel like when you saw that?
Safe. They're all here, so they're all evacuated to here. I'm feeling pretty good about that. So we're doing good. They're taking awesome care of us at the Hilton, so it's going good.
All right, Ashley, appreciate you taking the time. You stay safe with your friends. We also want to let you know that just a little bit ago we were outside and we were talking with the mayor of Tampa, and we were discussing with him just a little bit about safety protocols and what things are going to be going. He wanted to make sure everybody knows that that curfew is going to be enacted at 6 o'clock, and you see why. It's still a ways off, but already we're seeing the rain get a little bit heavier, more gusts. Actually going to take you inside of the Operations Center for Emergency Control. Take a listen.
You have a name of the shelter already?
It's hard to even differentiate the volunteers' voices inside the City of Tampa's Emergency Operations Center. One floor down.
It's a lot of fear.
Robin Baker is preparing. Her husband works inside this building, and she, like many other families, are preparing for the worst, finding shelter inside.
I will be sleeping probably where you are standing.
Mayor Bob Buckhorn admitted to us that he's in place for the long night ahead. Flanked by his police chief and fire crews, he did not mince words, digging deep to find an accurate description of what's in store.
Never thought I'd be quoting Mike Tyson. everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And well, we're about to get punched in the face. And so it's incumbent upon us to react and to adapt, to change that plan if necessary, to roll with whatever is we are confronted with, and to come out of this in good shape.
The mayor said earlier that we got lucky for 90 years, and it sounds like our number finally came up. I mean, when you hear that, I mean, how do you react?
Well, it's terrifying. It's really afraid, especially in Florida. If you didn't evacuate early, you've got nowhere to go. It takes forever to get out of here, so you might as well just find somewhere to go and stay.
Which is exactly what we just heard from Ashley a moment ago. They couldn't get gas. They wanted to evacuate. They didn't have a chance. A lot of the people actually in this hotel, one of the more interesting stories I found was some of them just got to the situation where they had to come here. They didn't have a choice to be anywhere else. They went to a couple shelters, and they finally just said, you know what, I'm not going to be willing to go through place to place to place. That's why we have all that information over our website, ABC Action News. But we do recommend that if you're making that last-ditch effort to get into those shelters, you call ahead and make sure there is a space, because as we start to see these gusts pick up, one of those situations is going to be if you go there and they don't have room for you, where do you go then? So make sure you're planning ahead. This is what the mayor was actually talking about. You have to kind of dodge and weave with the things that this storm is throwing at us, and that's what we're dealing with here as well. A lot of these people tell me their main concern right now in Tampa is having their cars in a flat lot like this, but things can be replaced, lives cannot. And I think that's why we are all pulling together right now, and we're staying with you guys through the end of the storm to make sure that we do just that, pull together and make sure we get through this on the other side. We're live in Tampa right now. Matthew Smith, ABC Action News.
All right, Matthew, thank you. I want to talk about something just before we get to Michael Paluska. I know he's standing by live in Southwest Florida, but it's really important. We literally just took a power hit here at our station. Lights went out, prompter went out, everything went out. And the storm is miles and miles and miles south of us. And I was talking to my husband earlier this morning. He's already lost power. He's in Wesley Chapel. So the chance of you guys losing power really, really high. Yeah. So I want to remind you now, charge your phones.
Yeah, charge everything you have.
Charge everything you have, because that will be your only communication for safety when the lights go out. So if you haven't done it now, make sure all your phones or computers, whatever, at 100%. So when the lights do go out, and they probably will, all across the Bay Area, you have some place to get some information and to communicate with family and friends as well. And also, if you lose power, especially on television, if you have a radio, battery-operated radio, I want to remind you of the stations that we are going to be simulcasting over right now, and they include 99.5 QYK, Q105, 104.7 FM, Wild 94.1, there it is, you see it on your screen, B98.7 and 92.5 Maxima. So
can we leave that up for just a second? Because I want to tell some folks here, if you obviously still have power and you've got your TV, you're watching us, go up to your screen right now and take a picture of your screen so you have those radio stations on your phone, and you'll know which ones to go to, because when we lose power, or when you lose power and you're listening to us on the radio and this storm is right over your head tonight at 2 in the morning, and you're not sure what you're hearing outside, you're going to still hear Dennis's voice telling you exactly where that storm is, potentially how much longer you have to hold on for, and those radio stations are going to be vital for you tonight as you're listening to us, okay?
Yeah, and not to mention communicating with family and friends, being able